Pat Waders correctly said, when we listen and celebrate what is both common and different, we become wiser, more inclusive, and better as an organization. Inclusion is no longer a matter of political correctness. It is the key to growth. The topic for the sixth panel is diversity in leadership. We have with us Mr. Sandeep Nagpal, Vice President and Head of Marketing, Cvent. Mr. Nagpal is responsible for accelerating growth, building brand visibility, and driving opportunity creation for Cvent platform in event technologies and hospitality solutions. He also heads shared services and global demand center, that is the center of excellence and digital and social marketing, campaign management, demand generation, experiential marketing, content creation and market research, and house world-class martech tools. Over the last 25 years, he has held senior leadership position in companies like Honda Motors, Canon, Microsoft, Nokia, SAP before joining Cvent. Then we have Mr. Vinod Bhat, who is the Chief Information Officer of Vistara TATA SIA Airlines. He is an experienced leader in delivering business transformation engagements for customers in a global outsourcing model leveraging digital technology. He has led to double the revenue of the key industry vertical within 2 years. He has held leadership positions in USA, Canada, UK, Europe, and APAC geographies for more than 15 years. He has been driving global teams for strategy, solution, technology, IT delivery, sales, contract management, innovation, and other results based on business outcomes and creating winning culture and pushing strong performance ethics. Then we have with us Mr. S. Ranganathan, Executive Vice President of Larsen Toubro. Mr. Ranganathan has been associated with L&T for past 38 years. He is an experienced leader with a demonstrated history of working in the defense segment. He has strong professional and personal skills in engineering management, operations management, procurement, business development, and people management. We have with us Dr. Natwar Kadel, Head of Center of Expertise and People Strategy from Hyundai Motors. He's a seasoned human resource professional and an impactful leader with a versatile experience of 14 plus years in the field of human resource. He started his career with Hyundai Motors India Limited as a management trainee and has climbed the career ladder within a very short span of time, making him the youngest team leader in the company. He is also the moderator for this panel. Now we request Mr. Natwar to initiate the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Hi, very good afternoon to all of you. Firstly, I just wanted to put up that sincerely apologize. I'm traveling, so I've not switched on my video. I'm in the car and I just parked it aside to take this discussions. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction and welcome to our co-panelist as well. Very interesting topic, diversity in leadership. And especially I would be love to hear more from the panel members because they come from a very varied experience, and the amount of experience what they have is almost 70% of my age. So I would not be able to talk much and add value, whereas I'll remit to be playing a role of stitching the thoughts together. But I'm sure the greater value would be coming from our speakers. So before I set up taking over giving the torchbearer to our speakers, I thought share my perspective as well. So before I talk about how are we going to touch upon the entire discussion, I thought something will start with some good note that if you want this topic to be really fruitful and something you want to take back home, this can only be done that if we both participate together. I mean, while we will share our experience, our knowledge, our thoughts, but I think they would be meaningless if you ask us more and more questions, contribute your thought as well. So let's make it more interactive. We as each speaker will talk about our experience in a brief, and then we'll move on to a platform where we'll make it more interactive. The more and more interactive we make the session too, and it's going to be more enriching and learning. Not just for you, I'm sure that we as a panel members would also learn something today and go back home. So moving on to what means to me is diversity. It's like You're standing up, looking at the cloud, all we see is just blue color, right? So for me, it is about the colors which I want to see in my life, and I look at it, and that's what for me diversity is all about. I see multiple colors on the sky. I see rainbow all over. I think it's nothing but manifestation of everything which is revolves around us, and that's something is very important, not just in our personal life, but also in the organization in today's context. Let me break down when I talk about specific to leadership today. Let me give you start with a small story. Uh, since I come from a car manufacturing company, and I would keep the examples more realistic so you'll be able to attach and understand the practicality of today in diversity is. One of the occasions where one of our product line was actually stopped because of one of the parts stopped working. And a replacement one would cost up extremely higher. Two, it would take a time to bring it that, and every minute would actually sustain a huge loss for the particular line. And when you have a car assembly line, you can understand every minute the car assembly line stops and how cost it would create too. So on a fire footing basis, you have the top people brought into it, right from the extreme level of leadership to the highest level of intelligence are brought onto single table, and we're told to add value to it. How can you quickly resolve this? Can you come up with an alternative? The team's breaking their head, and all the deadline we're given in is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when we line the starts the line again. I think it should be up and ready. Well, this team working all along, bringing all the thoughts as possible, but it is already 3 hours. They have a 7 hours of window. It's already 3 hours. They come to a no solutions at all. They're working out, and one of the person chips out of the discussions and standing out and uh, seeing him glazing over the thoughts. Nearby a technician who's a blue collar comes over and asks, "You seems to be very tense today. There seems to be very hot discussions. Do you think you would like to share, or do you want me to help?" He said, "No, it's beyond your call of duty. So it's not that you can't help on this." So then he moves out of the discussions and goes back to the table. Goes back again. These all people heads together, puts things together, but they don't come to solutions, and it's already about 4.5 hours. And the technicians who seeing them confused while feel understand what they are dealing to, because having knowing the reality of the problem, he comes inside and tells, "Can I give you a solution?" Although being already been embarrassed by saying that it is out of your call of duty and intelligence, he still goes and say, "Can I do and help, and can I do this?" Everybody glazing, and the same person says him again that, uh, "I have told you it is out of your line, and I'm sure you will not be able to, or we do a waste of time." While out of the four people sitting on the table, uh, agrees to the out of two agrees to the one what who said, but there was a one person who was a woman who said, "No, no, let's hear him out. We already have 2.5 hours window, so why don't we hear him out as well?" They explain him the problem, and he says, "Give me 2 hours and I come down with the solutions." He comes down with taking up a simple solutions, makes the alternative part ready by himself with a team of all the blue collars, put the part in place by 6:30, and ensures the line is running by 7 a.m. Well, this was a great learning in all of us that we always think that intelligence and the right amount of value additions comes only at the top level. Well, diversity leadership is not about just changing the leadership. It's just about bringing a culture and a value system that you're able to hear, you're able to bring everybody of your organizations together. You never know which part of your corner of your organization is actually adding a greater value. You don't have to be an intelligence at the top. All you have to have a culture of where you appreciate the intelligence from every corner of your organization. Well, moving from this business context, there's something which reminds me of I was when I was traveling. I've been traveling for the last couple of days, and I love reading. And I happened to see on a stall book. My Life is Full by Indra Nooyi. A book catched me seeing because I've heard a lot of sensations about her book, and I thought, why don't I grab one and start reading it? I took a book and start reading it. Let me tell you, I could not stop myself when I was going through the kind of experience which she has gone through. A Pepsi before Indra Nooyi and a Pepsi after Indra Nooyi had made significant difference. While she was one of those senior persons in the women leadership, while she was taken on the top, but she was not heard. Even her solutions were not looked at or overlooked it. Her value additions uh, were were taken as it was one among those. Just understand one as a there is definitely a lot of significant problem in today's context with gender. And most of the organizations today talking about how do we increase the gender diversity in the organization, not just in the leadership, but just understand when you're right there, but you're still not being heard. How would you actually feel it? And her passion, persistence, and patience had really worked a lot for her. She holded her ground. She stood there, and she brought a significant difference. She just not brought diversity as a practice, but she inherited that as a part of the DNA for PepsiCo. And today we all know what Indra Nooyi has contributed to overall PepsiCo. And she wherever she goes, it's just those thoughts we can just convert it to kind of theories which will work out for her for ages and ages. Moving on to a cultural context, it's very important we as an organization appreciate the diversity in culture as well. You know, I just thought this is very important for us to know that I saw one advertisement which was overnight was taken out from the portal or from the media because it actually challenged the Indian culture and it was showing that Karwa Chauth being celebrated in a different way. The one single sensational ad brought down the share value of a company to rock bottom. And it's very important today, your stakeholders are looking at you, the way you behave, the way you respect the culture. Your single idea or a single act can actually disrupt the entire state of your organization. So it's very important that we, as a diversity, when we have a leaders, we're not just looking at diversity in terms of gender, but also from the cultural context, from the business context, and looking everybody at an equal opportunity platform. I also just wanted to tell you that while in today's context, gender has been talked about more, especially in the leadership level, that why don't we have a women? I'll also tell you about a simple example. Uh, uh, One of the car companies, I would not name any company here, one of the car companies who were selling the cars actually had wanted to understand what a woman would like in the scene in the car. And they've done a several study, but nothing turned out to be a great result. But absenting knowing that they never had a woman on board itself. They brought a woman on the board, which simply stated her own experience. And you can't believe it, the simple changes in the car suggested by her made a lot of difference to the company to a particular one state in Kerala where about 60% of the cars are driven are owned by women. So there are simple things which are very important for an organization. Today, we at a leader, it's very important that we're able to understand diversity is not an initiative. It is an ingredient which you need in the organization. I just wanted to say the last example. Let's understand as a one person in a very typical Indian family who earns about 1 lakh. His living standards, his children's educations will be according to his earning levels. Now let's understand his spouse started to work, and if she gets, let's say, 50 or 70 or 80 or almost equal to her salary, his salary, understand, will that impact the living standard of one individual as a family, the children's educations? Everything will go one level up because your affordability is increased. Just imagine the similar scenario happens to the world when a living standard would go one level up. if we appreciate the diversity all across, our economy, our world will go one level up. It's very important. At the same time, you don't respect this, this can bring you out at no man's land. So with this thought process, I leave it here, and we'll try and add value as much as possible. And I hand this torchbearer to Sandeep, who would share his experience. And Sandeep, if you could talk about how diversity is a value and some of the challenges which you have faced in your experience. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Natwar. Thank you very much. And
Sandeep,
good
sir,
afternoon. Yes, can you
if
hear
I
me?
may, I am sorry to interrupt. I would just like to take a moment to welcome Mr. Ranganathan, who is now here with us. He has just joined. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ranganathan, and good afternoon to everybody else. Um, Thank you for this opportunity. And Natwar has already summarized a lot about what he has experienced. And I think we all who've been into industry for a while have seen diversity topic taking shape over the last decade or so. Um, it has been very stark in the manufacturing industry in the beginning, and then technology industry per se had had a little more diversity as compared to the other sectors. But I would always give a kudos to the agriculture sector, where the diversity has always been celebrated, because in Indian context, women have always been part of the agriculture. So I think that is probably a more progressive sector than any other sector as far as India context is concerned. But having said that, I think the sector that I come from, which is the technology sector, I think there is a lot of focus uh, for for the gender diversity to be brought into leadership, because leadership is so critical, particularly from the perspective of digital transformation agenda that has been going on for last decade or so, or last at least 5-7 years, when it has become very prominent. And a lot of innovation in that sector has come in. And then large innovations that are happening, whether it is from a climate perspective or mobility perspective, or even for that matter, when you look at the medical sector, which has become very prominent. um, the if you look at the global world, if you do not have diverse leaders on the board or in the company, it is very difficult for you to introduce products into the multiple global markets, because for everybody, the market in technology world is the global market. If you do not bring in diverse culture, so gender is one part of the diversity, right? So the ethnicity, the regional part, the age diversity, of course, the you know the other parts of diversity from an ethnic background and all this stuff, all of that has to be brought in to be able to take a perspective at the leadership level, and so that you are able to lot of agility, make decision, take one kind of absorb the various point of views, and then make decisions which are more relevant for the world solutions. I think technology from that perspective is a little different from embracing the diversity. However, there is a long way to go. We are still, most of the industry is still waiting for things to evolve. They're building the pipelines of their leadership. I would probably want to focus more on what I see in today's world. Right, I work with not many startups and others to figure out what's happening in that world. Um, Most of you are going to be into the jobs, and probably some of you will be starting their own ventures and all that stuff. One thing which is clearly very, very visible in the last 3 or 4 years, when startup has become the buzzword in the industry today, you would see there is a lot of bias towards a certain set of people. So two bias I can see very clearly. One is certain set of education. You look at any job, ad that you will see today, right? You would probably ask for a certain set of people, certain kind of people, certain education background of people, and you try and absorb and hire people from a certain education background, right? And or certain cities or certain kind of skill sets. Now that, what does that bring? That brings again a lot of uniformity and not diversity to your hiring, which kind of creates a lot of problem because you are hiring people of a similar education background, similar thinking background, similar kind of people, and there you will not be able to create solutions for the world, right? So that is one clear piece which is very visible. The second very clear trend which is visible is that people are hiring a certain age group, right? So you are hiring people less than 30, people between 25 to 30, 6 years of experience, 5 years of experience. Nobody is looking at people who have done it like 10, 15 years, 10 years experience, 15 years of experience. Very less people are right now in the new founding space are not looking at people with experience. They think that it can be done very fast. You need pace, you need speed to do things, but you also need appreciation of of the problems and understanding and maturity. So what is happening is, again, a lot of the native technology companies, I'm not talking about the established companies, but I'm talking about right now the new companies where a lot of you will be taking part when you get out of these courses. You will find that you will see a lot of uniformity of the kind of people that you will work. So I think that these are the two very specific problems that are visible. And one of the reasons that I, in my articulation, can say, one of the reasons that, 9 out of 10, or maybe 90, 9.5 out of 10 startups do not scale is one of the reasons why they do not have a diverse point of views. They do not have a varied way of looking at problem solving. They're solving a problem of a particular thing that they have identified, and now they do not appreciate it. So I think those are the kind of, there's a very typical example that I wanted to give you, which is very visible, very stark in the face right now in the industry that you can see. So maybe when you get into these worlds, you need to start putting, you can be the change agents, start looking at people from different, I mean, I have in my personal experience seen, the other example is that I've seen a lot of people from tier 2, tier 3 cities that I hire bring in a lot of perspective that we, normally sitting in the metro cities where the, the startups have started cropping up. And of course, it's starting to go down to the second tier cities, but still the congregation of technology industry is still in the top 8, top 9 metro cities in India. I'm just giving you India context in that sense, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, a lot of people who are hired from this second tier, third tier cities, or even colleges of second tier, third tier, we find that there is a lot more appreciation of the culture, of the problems that we are trying to solve. We find a far more appreciation of the problem. And when you bring these people to the leadership levels, right, they bring in a far more matured point of view. And the only thing that I would probably also add to is, only by adding diversity in the leadership is not going to help, but you also need to start giving credence to the point of view. Right? So there are people who come with different point of views. You should not be bulldozing those point of views. You should be actually taking those point of views in the consideration of decision making. Third part is, I think, what I'm very optimistic about. If you look at the India tech industry, by and large, a very large representation of the leadership is by women, which is very encouraging. I mean, look at top of the line. You look at Devjini, who's heading NASCOM. You look at Cisco. You look at Neelam used to be, Neelam Dhawan used to be my boss at Microsoft at some point of time. She was the pioneer of leadership, women leaderships in India. Look at more Sindhu Gangadharan. She's in SAP. Look at most of the technology companies, IBM. Look at PayPal. Most of these companies now have leadership with women, diverse gender leadership. So I think that is a very healthy sign in the Indian industry, which is starting to show. Most of the Gartner studies or the McKinsey studies say that if you have leadership and diversity in your organization, you are much likely to be more profitable and much more productive as compared to people who don't have it. And so I think there is no brainer that diversity is important, and it is even more important when you talk about leadership. The important thing is that are you giving that a conscious try? And in an established organization, it is even more difficult. So you need to create pipeline of leadership to develop. So and leaders are not developed overnight, right? You need to have a program. You need to have a directional mentorship program, support programs, and you need to really take it right from the grassroots levels or entry levels to a large, to really build that pipeline time. I think Tatas have done a great job, and I think we probably talk of Vistara and Tatas and others. I am sure he'll bring in perspective, but I think I really appreciate a lot more great HR practices that are happening in some of the business houses in India, which have really shown the world how diversity needs to be managed. So with that, I think I would want to see if he's got a lot of experience, so he can bring that to you. Vinod, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you. So, okay, can you hear me?
Sandeep, thank you so much.
Sorry, Natwar, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, Natwar,
Sandeep, thank you so much for adding that active. Okay, just hold on. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are, Natwar. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, Sandeep, for adding that perspective, unity with this diversity, especially touching up the hiring and how do you break those stereotype notions, going beyond the borders, and very valuedly put that diversity is not just a practice but inherited culture. Can we have the perspective of Vinod now, who's from the aviation industry? I'm sure he's got something more to bring it on the table. Vinod, over to you.
Thank you, Natwar. Thank you, Sandeep. Again, a good afternoon to everyone. So it's always a pleasure to interact with the students, and thanks for having me here. So I will probably give a little different perspective that we say diversity is important. I would say diversity is the only way to do it. So it's not about it is mandatory or optional thing. If you look at any organization, I will probably talk about the industry perspective. Look at any organization, and every organization has a purpose. So the purpose is either to serve their B2B customers, or it is purpose is to serve B2C or B2B2C. So I hope all of you understand what that is. So it is business to business, business to consumer, business to customers. So when you look at it, if tomorrow one of you wants to start up a business and they want to have a proper market in their mind, a proper geography in mind, proper products and services in mind. So you are going to analyze that first, and you will see that the whole market, the whole product services, the whole geography which you want to do it, or even the age groups, they will be all diverse. There is no way you can very little, even if you take the premium phones like Apple, they still have variations. They don't come with one phone, even though it's only one phone. So that means if you look at, from diversity point of view, from the organization point of view, this is the only way to address it. So organization has purpose. What is the purpose of organization? Purpose will be probably shoot up the revenues, make your get or have the new products up and running ASAP, have a global footprint, and not only India. Even India, within India, you really have a lot of diversity, the different flavors, and across the globe also are talking about. So diversity is must have. It is not important. It is the only way the companies who have embraced it, who have made it part of the operating model, they are successful. And you see that. And when I say successful, again, on different dimensions, whether it's, revenue year on year, whether it's the retention. I think Sandeep talked about that why retention is, good there. Because you have been able to have the diverse set of workforce who are part of the leadership. And it is not only the top leadership we are talking about. It is not an executive leadership. Let's really differentiate between an executive leadership and the leadership. So we have people at all the levels. For example, if somebody is running a plant, somebody is running a sales. So we're saying that the representation at that level, the representation at literally a team member level. And if you have that kind of organization structure and culture, then all are feeling empowered. All are being empowered, they are heard. All are being empowered, they can take decisions. And whether it's not only gender, it's about the age, it's experience, it is language, it is culture, anything you take as part of it. And depending on which business you're operating in, you may have to fine tune that depending on that. For example, I was in US for 10 years. So when we had to really give our presentations for new projects to customers who are LATAM based, I needed to have someone who can speak Spanish. Whenever managing the whole European customers, I need to understand that who will speak French, who will speak German. So that is part of it. I cannot say that, oh, you know what, I can only speak English. You please bring only people who understand English. Yes, they can bring it, but how much chances you have to win a proposal, win a deal? Probably very little, because it is immediate connection you can build, not only from the deal winning perspective, but also understanding what they're saying, and small nuances of the culture of the points which they're raising, which are very different, even the variations are in the language also. So from that perspective, yes, so diversity is must have. That is number one. Second point which I want to really highlight is what technology generation we're living in today and why it is important. See, if you look at it, all of you must know that we're in Industry Revolution 4.0. So what this 4.0 means? This 4.0 means that where the last three were steam engine, electricity, internet, fourth is digital. So when you say digital revolution, it's about all digital technologies, which includes your cloud, your automation, your analytics, your BI, anything which you are seeing around. So why it is important? Because every business has been impacted. Every business has been reimagined. And when you look at it, so technology, diversity in technology is also playing a great role. So people who are bringing different skill sets to the table, I think Mr. Natwar was giving an example of, it was a skill set which that person brought to the table who was able to fix that problem. So you cannot only say that I have a 15, 20 years guy who's a senior architect, he's going to define the next role. No, answer is no. Because if you look at the startups, they're talking about the apps which are going to be up and running in weeks time, 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. And a lot of those apps are today being even developed by government. If you look the Arogya Setu app, fantastic app. They probably would have been developed by people with less than 5 years of experience, or even the startups which are today in the market. So the diversity in technology skill set, diversity in technology leadership is also very important, because if you don't understand that, if you don't take the right inclusion as part of it, your businesses won't be successful. You will be struggling on either on differentiation in the market, you will be struggling on how to make the products more personalized. Because if you look at it, when I take technology, I'm talking about data also. So if you look at particularly last 18 months, 18 months have been huge, I would say operating changes, model changes which are happening because of the COVID. A lot of new services have come up. The positive side is most touchless services. If you take aviation also, a lot of touchless services has come up. And most of the businesses or most of the offices are having now option to work from home also. So when I'm not talking about only office goers, I'm talking about the factories. I'm talking about the control command centers which are managed from the smartphones now than physically going into the factories. I'm talking about robots who are working along with the humans. They're called cobots or collaborative bots. And those things are happening as part of it. So you need to understand that technology is playing a role. The third thing is, which is most important, is the generation we are in today. See, we are today, a lot of people even understand that we are in generation alpha. People have gone, people are thinking about millenniums, those are over. So we had baby boomers, we have millennials, generation X, then millennials, then generation Z, Z, and now it is generation alpha. Generation alpha is the generation which is born after 2010. They are actually the people who are going to be consuming these services. So you need to look at the diversity from the generation point of view as well, that do you have the right mix of people? Because at the end of the day, if you are in, again from industry point of view, planning to build a product and you are thinking I am going to do marketing all over television, this generation doesn't watch television. Okay, maybe you have to push the content over OTT. Maybe you have to push the content over social media. So if you don't have that kind of people in your leadership who can think that what is that it has happened in the market from the generation point of view, maybe I'm not saying you have to go only to generation alpha. You may have to have the right mix of generation X, generation Y, generation Z, as well as this. So that's how it will make it more composite, because we're today living 5 generations are living today. So 5 generations from baby boomers to generation alpha, people are there. So diversity from that perspective also, that if you are building it, depending on what business you are in, so you need that, they need to have place on the table. And those ideas have to be included. So diversity by concept is just whether people have place on the table. That's all. Second is, more important is inclusivity, inclusiveness. Are you hearing them out? Have you just created a role that, I have got a, gender X, Y, and that person has it's part of my diversity team, but actually they are not heard at all. So how you include, the inclusiveness is very important as part of it. That's why D and I's always goes along. It's not only the structure, it's not only the people, it's also that whether I'm taking inputs from them. Because if you hear them out, you will actually be able to implement something. When you implement it, you have a lot more chances of making your products and services relevant for the target audience, more meaningful. You can actually hear them out also, and with the right listening platforms, you can actually make it better. So these are the 3 things I thought that I'll put on the table, that they're very important from the diversity point of view as well as inclusion point of view. So, yeah, I will probably take a pause and give the control back to Network. Network, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Back to Network. Network, can you hear us?
Hey, I can hear you. Just confirm me if you're able to hear me as well.
Yes, we can now.
Hey, great, Vinod. It was definitely nice and powerful listening to you. I just loved it, the line which you said that diversity is not must to have. It's how the organization has to operate. I love your perspective of going very local in terms of regional connect, bringing the local dynamics to it, talking about technology industry 4.0, and the bringing the most important element and current to context it about millennials, Gen and Alpha. I just put that point which you said about if you want to sell something, sell the way you want and sell what you want, but in the way in which it is being aspired for. The customers you're selling it. If you're selling it to generation, sell it in the way they style they look for. Talking about touching about the social media and so on. Very interesting. I'm actually noting down a couple of questions which is lingering in my thought. And I'm sure that I'll put it across to you once we hear Mr. Ranganathan as well. Ranganathan, over to you if you can share your perspective on the diversity. Mr. Ranganathan?
Thank you, Natwar sir, for that question. But I think Mr. Ranganathan is in an important meeting, unfortunately, and he's been hearing us since the beginning, but is not able to participate, and he'll come back in a few minutes, if you just don't mind. Natwar sir, am I audible
Okay,
to you?
so it's just three of us.
Yes, for the next few minutes again, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. I just thought it's very important to share one of the stories in with specific to our own organization, and I'll I'll raise
Natwar, you're not visible.
Natwar sir,
a
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think you're facing some
relevant
internet
questions
issues.
to both the other co-panelists as well. The very importantly brought by that the role of millennials in today's context.
Natwar sir, you're no longer audible to us and you're on mute. Initially, you were having some network issues. Your voice was breaking.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, maybe me and Sandeep can start discussing some more relevant points. Maybe Sandeep, from your perspective, you have seen the industry. From your perspective, from the generation you see the changes which are happening, particularly after 90s. The way I would say the applications, the products, the consumer behavior, and how do you see the diversity from the generation point of view, which is more about the as I said that the people don't watch television anymore, they don't see probably newspaper also.
Yes, Natwar,
Yeah,
we can hear
so
you.
Network, we're just starting. Yes, we'll just start one question and then until you get the stable internet. Okay. So maybe Sandeep, if you can share your perspective,
Yeah.
because you would have also worked with many of the teams, so that will really help the students.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vinod. I think I was very, when I was hearing you, it was very interesting to hear what you touched upon, the multi-generational workforce right now, right? So 4 or 5 generations working alongside. I think that itself is a miracle. We never had that scenario in many decades, right? We at the most had 3 generations working at any given point of time. Most of the third generation was almost at the retirement stage when the next 2 generations were working. This is the first time when we say generation, it is now the digital generations, right? So because the generation starts becoming relevant now, as you rightly said, after 2010, you are 20 years old kids have now, they're all digitally native, right? My father, for example, would not even would not be able to relate to that generation's thought process, right? So to that point, I think the way we are creating products, right, the way we are promoting products and creating products, they are addressed to multi generations. It's not addressed to generation alpha. It will be at some point of time, maybe 5-7 years from now, it will be built for that. But currently the products that are built for at least 3 generations in mind, right? And that is what, and most of that generation you see is starting. The interesting part is that because this whole TV concept that you brought in, Vinod, is fading out in some sense, but the older generation is also becoming digitally savvy, right? So what is happening is that with that kind of convergence of consumption of content and consumption of experience, right, is happening by multiple generations on digital. I mean, Arogya Sethi was a classical example, right? So whether it was a 80-year-old gentleman or a 18-year-old kid, all of them actually experience the same app, and they were addressed to the same app to take the vaccinations, right? So imagine the products that are being built now, right? So if you do not appreciate the needs of different generations when you are conceptualizing a product, or you are reaching out to that generation, right? You will never be able to succeed in either the product making or making the product. Product might be great, idea might be great, but you are not able to take that to that generation because you don't appreciate what that generation is thinking about. So I think that we need to create all our strategies at convergence points. So there will be it is not one convergence point, at least 2 to 3 different convergence points, right? Where you are actually trying to address their problems and address in their own way. So that is where your leadership, and I was referring to that in a little different context in my previous listing. The startups which are building, if they are only generation alpha, which is building a product and taking it to market, it will be very difficult for them to even appreciate what the next generation and the next generation is looking for, right? Because they're only building and thinking for a particular set of people with a one set of mindset. So you need to, therefore, the multi-generation leadership and multi-gender leadership or multi-ethnic leadership is important when you're making decisions. And to your point, which was very valid, leadership doesn't mean board. Leadership doesn't mean somebody who's running the show from a founder's perspective. It also means who are in the frontline decision making. People who are making decisions at various levels need to have, we need to have people of different diverse backgrounds to be able to take the companies forward. And to a large extent, I 100% agree with you, Vinod, that it is not about creating positions. It is also about giving them the voice and appreciating their point of view and taking them into the context of decision. So I think with that, multi-generation is a very, very nuanced thing. And I think all of us appreciate that. I think we at an older generation are appreciating it more because we are seeing two more generations coming after us, and we are kind of hiring some of them and we are working with some of them. And it's difficult for us to change as well. I can tell you, when you go into a workforce, you will realize that you will be very difficult for you to work with your older generations. So, but those convergence points have to be created. So only then would you be able to be successful. Even we have to work and appreciate the point of view a lot of times from the generation alpha, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. I'm telling you, at our level, I'm sure Vinod faces the same problem. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to us, but we have to go with that point of view because there is a point of view and there is a large section which is in the workforce today, which is making those decisions and which needs that kind of a decision. So, and I have seen 9 out of 10 times when you go with a strong point of view and you give the credence to that point of view, you make the right decisions. So therefore, it is good to always appreciate point of views by generation perspective. Back to you on it.
Thank you, Sandeep. I want to check whether Mr. Ranganathan has joined.
Yeah.
Mr. Ranganathan, are you there?
No, sir, he has not been able
Okay.
to join. He'll only be able to join at around 1:05.
Okay, so, Mr. Natwar, are you okay, or I can?
No, I think you just have to confirm me if you're able to hear me.
Yeah, better. Yes.
Okay, great. This is a great thought by Sandeep. I just thought if I could add a value to it. We as an organization, we're finding and strive that in today's context, you have about 80% of car owned by millennials. And you have the leadership board, which had no representation from the millennials. And we were not able to make a product which could bring the context and the feel of millennials. So we thought a lot. We brought an idea from them, but it wasn't working good enough as we thought. And we actually went up framing up a millennial board, which is just about 1 or 2 years, 3 years of experience, even going up to management trainees part of that board. And they coming up with sitting down on a table, bringing a different thought or process, realigned with a lot of mentors who have experience, who've been in the field, and come up with an idea. And all you see today, the couple of new products which is launched by Hyundai is called N Line. It is predominantly coming from completely millennial. So, and it is not sold in the conventional thought process. Again, the media campaigns, everything talking about from the social media perspective, and the way the launch was done, it's precisely, it's like, the same thing what Vinod was talking about. Sell what you want, but sell in the way in which they wanted it. That also, sums up that diversity has to be, it is not just, it's just not more important, but must to have, like how Vinod said. Vinod, just one thing lingers to my mind, if you can add value to it, is that has having diversity has ever helped you, if in your personal experience, in terms of a decision making or a crucial decision making that probably impacted a product or a business, some story or some case thing which you can share it?
Yeah, absolutely. There are multiple stories because I've been living this life for long globally. So as I said, in several of our businesses, actually, when you have to provide the solution to the customer, because at the end of the day, you're selling to a customer. So customer comes with the requirements, and you try to build the solutions on top of it, and then those solutions have to be explained to the customer. And what happens is that the same solution, if you are explaining the audience in India versus Europe, in Canada, it is altogether a different ballgame. As a product owner or a business head, if you feel that I can send the same guy who is going to talk in India and then going to Europe and India, you are grossly mistaken. I think you have to look at. I have multiple examples where we have to really pinpoint a particular role in the team who is going to fill that role. And that role was either on the business side who understands business, or on the technology side, or on the culture side also. Because what was happening is we may be technically and business wise quite right, but culturally it doesn't work at all. It will offend the whole customer base. So we had to really deliberate a lot and get the right mix in the team. Always it was more about, not about gender. It was more about the connecting the dots from us and customer point of view. Are we really ticking both the boxes at the same time? Because it should not happen that the ask from customer is this, we say, what we can do here. It doesn't work like that. And I can tell you the value of those deals was in millions of dollars, which has really helped us. And the way we concluded those meetings was really fantastic. And the conversations which happened in those meetings was absolutely personalized, absolutely on this topic, absolutely informal. In a formal meeting, you can break that barrier because you're able to connect. Once you connected, you open up. When you open up, you have more chances to understand customer, more chances to win those kind of opportunities. I think that is very important, particularly when there's a diverse set of businesses you have. In fact, India is a classic example. Where you have to, if you have a same product, even the tea, if you see the tea which is being sold in north and south is a little different. The way they market it, the way they put the position it, because you need to understand that it is to be addressed to diverse set of customers. And also when you build that strategy, you need to have the right inputs from your own employees who are actually representing that strategy. Absolutely true. Second part which I want to really highlight is that many times people ask, is diversity a top-down approach or it is a bottom-up? What should we do? I think it is both. There has to be a directional board approval that diversity is very important. And particularly for those organizations who have been in the industry for long, because for them there is a little bit more ground to cover than the organizations which are born and brought up now, or now means last say 10 years. This is kind of given. Some because the nature of the business, some because of regulatory compliance also, that you need to have the diversity in your business. But bottom line is that the successful businesses are those businesses who are actually really putting this bottom-up, top-down approach together. And that's how this whole sustainable organizations really emerge. I feel that that is a mantra, if you ask me. And of course, Natwar, there are so many examples. And I want to also tell one more thing probably to the students is that don't worry about too much experience on the head. Many times you feel that, you know what, I don't have 15 years experience, I don't have 10 years experience. Lot of new products, lot of new services, lot of new teams which are getting created are actually run by people less than 30 years of age. So on the average. So feel free and don't put stops on your thinking. If you have to really create a company, yes, think about diversity, since I'm limiting my thinking only on diversity part of it. But look at diversity from multiple dimensions. Look at from the age, look at from the gender, look at from the roles, the experience, the market, the everything. You should put it on the table and tick out which is relevant for you. And then you make sure that you genuinely work on it, refine it, and as we progress. Back to you, Natwar.
Great, Vinod. While you share, I just go back to when you were talking about the diversity. That's something which you said that diversity has to have its business impact. And I'm just moving to Sandeep because he comes from a very different, varied experience of different sectors he has worked it with. There's always something which young ones always think, when we go into the organizations, most of the times when we have a vibrant ideas, but that's something not been heard about. And I go back to the conversation where Vinod was talking about we need to make diversity as part of a culture. So you come from a very different experience being in from the manufacturing and today from the IT as well. What's your thought on it? How do you think this culture can be created?
Yeah, so Nirmaan, I think thanks. Great question. I mean, uh, you're kind of taking it on a very different tangent. Diversity of thought, right? So it's not about gender. It is not about age. It is not about ethnicity. It is about diversity of thought. So you need to bring in the when you talk about culture of innovation and collaboration. I think the idea of uh, the basic concept which Japanese have really mastered the art of bringing the diverse thoughts on table and then deliberating and discussing and then taking it to the to the level of productizing it and using it for the business impact. Because they're the I'm sure Natwar, you can appreciate it more because there is a lot more of collective collaborative thinking concept that was given to the world by Japanese, and I think that was a very interesting thing because I worked for a lot of Japanese companies prior to coming into this sector, and I realized that what you do is you really foster the culture of bringing in various thoughts together, and you really give them the culture of innovation is built by small progresses. A small idea, no idea is a small idea. Every idea is an idea, and it has to be brought to the table and discussed and for the merits, and then implemented. And the culture should be more about uh, having everything on the table to discuss and then implement something that is incrementally adding to the benefit of the audience. Now, this idea is not necessarily, or this culture is not necessarily built overnight. It has to be built bottoms up and top down, as Vinod said. It has to be mandated that you have to bring a collaborative approach to things, and then fostering and the culture of rewarding, incentivizing the process of bringing various ideas together. My best experience, to be honest, of bringing uh, the the culture of collaborative thinking and a team build was Nokia. I think and Nokia fostered very nicely the whole concept of bringing teams together. Every team actually was incentivized to bring more ideas on table and then take it to the fruitification. So I think more about it is about respecting the diversity of thought. I think that is a culture, should be one of the pillars of the culture that we build in any organization, and that has to be brought up top down. and then fostered into the organization, if that helps.
Great, great, Sandeep. There's something which comes to my thought. Well, Vinod said that diversity is it's all about how it's not diversity in leadership is not about systems and structures. It's about empowering the diversity in the organization is more important. With this headwinds, you both come from very vast experience. So. And these young ones today contextually are just not the one who follows job market but also want to be an entrepreneur, wants to create the job market. With this the context and the booming of the startup culture, that's something both of you one after other would share, that things much to do from the diversity point of view from your leadership experience for them.
Natwar sir,
Yes.
just to inform you, Ranga sir is with us now. He's participating and he can answer. Welcome, sir. Am I audible to you?
Afternoon, and let me start with profusely apologizing to my fellow panelists. I hope I'm audible. And to the audience, sometimes, the customer always is a king. And the meeting which I should have, which should have got over by 11:30, and that's why I had confirmed 12 noon, just stretched. And the last 200 meters, I have run to my laptop, believe it or not.
No problem. Customer is
Apologies to
always the
all.
king.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Customer is always the king.
Yeah. Sure. So please feel free to ask any questions. I'm sorry I missed all the good words and an opportunity to learn what the other panelists had to share, but I guess let me try and make up for the last few minutes. Thank you. Over
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. Hi, Ranganathan. Just want to ensure that you're able to hear me loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So we had Sandeep and Vinod talking about from their experience point of view. You just have chipped in, and we are sure that you were going to add greater value to the entire context. We just wanted to hear from your perspective, diversity as a challenges you would have seen it across your experiences. Some of your great learnings, which would have, if you can throw open, and especially from the point of view for this young generation to take things forward when they join the organizations. So over to you, Ranganathan.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Diversity quite often gets interpreted in a particular way. I'm sure the earlier speakers would have covered it. But diversity is from, if you look at it from an entrepreneur's point of view, diversity is in terms of four broad areas. One, of course, is the market itself. Second is the market forces. They are slightly different. The market is one, the market forces include the competition and other stakeholders. The third, of course, is within the organization ability to handle a portfolio which shows some adjacencies and some innovations. The fourth, of course, is the cultural diversity in which the gender diversity becomes a part. And in today's world, even in organizations like ours, Larsen Toubro, which is 83, which is getting into the 84th year, we started valuing it some time ago. And that's how, if you look at from, I have to share, I'm a frog in this realm called Larsen Toubro, having spent my 39 years there. From L&T point of view, we started diversifying from product and markets. We were completely builders to the nation portfolio. Today, about 27-28% of our markets are abroad. It meant unlearning Indian nuances. It meant relearning certain cultural aspects of course, we operate a lot in the Gulf. We operate in the infotech, IT segment. We operate a lot in Europe and in the United States. It meant relearning, of course, unlearning and then relearning. And if I have to look at the core business that I represent, which is in defense, with whatever are the policies in defense, trying to get foothold wherever possible opportunities arise. While doing this, one thing that has remained at the core, and I think the young entrepreneur should factor in, is what is that one single USP we have? Each of us need to have a USP. Only then that is sustainable, because today's thing is not just, okay, we have a fly by night kind of a situation where we start something, okay, we made, of course, the entrepreneur prima facie may be interested in getting return on whatever investments she or he has made. But that's not enough. If we say that we have to have a sustainable thing where we don't look at ourselves, but we look at to start with 5 families and then 20 families and then 40 families and grow, the model has to be a little different. It has to show adaptability at a different plane. And looking at the geopolitical situation, certain subtleties which are coming into our requirements are the ESG, the environment, the sustainability, the green, the governance. Those things also start getting into the play. So diversity is not just in terms of the product portfolio, but it covers 4 layers as I started with. I hope I could answer the query. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Ranganathan. Just wanted to get your more perspective, especially on one thing which we've been talking about from cultural perspective. How do you bring that cultural perspective, diversity, especially in the leadership, and how do you bring that culture of empowerment cascade to across the organization?
Okay, so let me speak from a L&T perspective. The leadership and the cultural diversity in leadership. When I had started my career in L&T, we were, it would be incorrect even if I say we were a male dominated. We were a male or gentleman organization, because way back then the workshops and manufacturing had only gentlemen, both in the workshops as well as in engineers. Sometime towards 90, when we said we have to start the L&T next wave, especially after unsuccessful bid by a family in the late 80s, that is when we started looking at how do we bring in diversity at the leadership. I must say that what we started off towards late 90s is bearing results today. We have at the leadership position people running businesses, where we have our lady colleagues running businesses, younger than gentlemen colleagues, but proving to be better, I would say. I mean, with all humility, say that proving to be better in making business decisions, because they are genetically programmed in a different way. While that is what is the result, what we went through was a leadership selection, not selection, a leadership journey for people. So let's say we had 100 people. We tried to assess people over 3 years of past performance, put them through a journey of assessment. We used to call it assessment earlier. Now, for political reasons, we call it a development center. We used to call it an assessment center. These people are put into a simulation lab for a couple of days, where we take away the bias of any particular function, because these people could come from HR, they could come from finance, they could come from business enabling functions of supply chain, they could come from the line functions of marketing, program management, manufacturing, etc. We created a simulated thing, and that is where we started first cultivating and bringing about a cultural change in the organization on what meritocracy is, how we wish to put these people, put a set of people who have been consistently good performers at least for 3 years, put them through, and believe it or not, let's say we send 100 people to that center, maybe about 4 or 5 go break the ceiling of that center and go. Then we put them through something called a leadership development program, where these people, in addition to whatever the responsibilities and roles are, they are given a specific 7 to 8 month project, which we say should be 2 degrees away from their core competence. They are tried and tested, and those who break that ceiling then get into the Harvards and the London Business School. There are various stages. This has helped us bring in far more mature and focused approach towards leadership. Of course, when we talk of human beings, it's not entirely scientific. There's always some amount of gray. But if we take away the gray part, if I say about 72% is what is in the scientific and the rational and the logical part of selection of people in leadership position, we have been able to bring up, and this is what has helped in bring a lot more of, I would say, broad-based approach. We also culturally had to change, and it's important, because from a company which was predominantly having gentlemen 3.5 decades ago, when we started getting more and more lady colleagues. I'm very happy to say that though defense, which I represent, is not in the information technology, as of now, we have 15% people who are lady colleagues, which is one of the highest in the non-information technology in Larsen Toubro. And many of them have broken glass ceilings. What that brought about is we started understanding certain unique needs which the families expect in India, especially in the Indian culture. We have to be very conscious that geography continues to be India, while we may be a global multinational, trying to understand and adjust our policies, which facilitate these leaders to perform even though physically they are not at the workplace. Please understand, we come from a manufacturing core or a construction core, where the only way we count work is how many hours have been put into the manufacturing area or into the construction area, how many tons of concrete have been poured, those kind of things. To change that mindset, to say that yes, people need not be physically in the workplace, yet give output which matters to the company, which matters to the profit and loss, which helps the bottom line. It was a lot of transformation first on the leadership side to accept, to acknowledge, and then to implement policies where today we offer some amount of flexibility. I don't want to say that we go all the way like some other companies, but we offer some amount of flexibility to those colleagues of ours, immaterial of the gender, because there are a lot of lady colleagues who say, no, we don't need anything special. So I'm very conscious of that, the younger generation especially, where we give some flexibility and ensure that their work gets due recognition. They are able to operate not necessarily from workplace. There's of course one small cardinal constraint we are conscious, and we of course share with our colleagues. If they are working on a very sensitive program where we have to maintain air gaps with respect to connectivity from remote, there is no choice there. We have to either, if those people want that 1 year or 2 year flexibility, we move them to some other area where they can afford to work from a remote location. But this is a kind of change that even a brick and mortar company, as we are referred to in the market, tried to change, and we are seeing results. To be fair, we have seen, of course, the COVID has slightly changed the dynamics, but otherwise, the impact of COVID, not COVID itself, the impact of COVID. Otherwise, we have seen a drop in our people who are leaving us. I mean, the separations or whatever people call it, that we have seen. And all of us as business leaders have set a target that for defense, by the year 2026, we are going to have a cultural gender diversity, having 20% of our workforce from the ladies. We are also conscious that today, when we talk of Divyang, the way the Honorable Prime Minister coined the word, people with very special abilities. Obviously, if you ask them to climb a 20-foot to 20-story building to do work, it's impractical. But can they help us in some other area where they don't have to be physically exercised, but they can use whatever faculties they have? We have started in a small way, certainly. We had started it some time back, but now that is also getting a little more attention, I would say, from the management. Thank you.
Thanks, Ranganathan. That was 360-degree perspective. While paucity of this time, which we have to close by 1:30, I keep this platform open for having questions from the students. IIM's team request to you to please facilitate if we've not been able to listen to the questions clearly. If you can paraphrase it, it would be great. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. All those who have a question can raise their hand, and I'd ask you to unmute yourself and ask.
Please go ahead.
Can I speak, Kushi? Can I go ahead, Kushi? Yeah, good afternoon, sirs. It was a wonderful panel discussion, and it was resonated among most of the members here about the diversity in terms of experience, and that made me feel excited, to join India Inc. and to take charge as early as possible as an entrepreneur or probably in a C-suite position. But my question is more with respect to the gender diversity, wherein government has brought in a regulation, I think in 2013, wherein at least a woman should be included in a board, right? But my question is, did it fare any results? Because you're in the industry and you've seen it. And also a related question, should the government be more, should the policy be more like encouraging women entrepreneurs, like in terms of them getting fundings and others support, etc.?
Great. Ranganathan, would you like to take up this question?
Sure. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot the person who asked the question. Sorry, I forgot the name. So, Krishna something, right?
Yes, Krishna Mahidhan, sir.
Krishna, it's like this, we wait for the government to say that wearing helmets is compulsory, right? Even the educated amongst us. But while you did speak about 2012-13 when they brought in the gender diversity, by and large, and I'm speaking from a very Indian context, please pardon me for getting into the ancient India, we always kept women on a pedestal. It's just that in the last 200 years, there's been some kind of a distortion feeling. And we always say, Yashoda's son. We never say the father's name quite often doesn't strike us. From there, we have moved. Therefore, the government realized and did bring in legislation. Coming now specific to L&T, because that's a question that I can answer. We inducted lady members in the board. Till recently, Mrs. Naina Lal Kidwai was there. Then we had Miss Krishna Shah, Dr. Miss Krishna Shah, and many others over there because they have a fixed tenure of 3 to 5 years. And they are on multiple boards. But we took this call around the mid-90s. Till then, let me confess, because it's there in public domain, we did not have women directors. But we didn't wait till 2013 is all I want to say. I'm sure other industries would have taken these things because those industries where there have been a family dominance, unlike Larsen and Toubro, there's always been somebody from the family who has been at the, if not at the helm of affairs, but at least as part of the decision-making board. Things are changing, but we are a population 130 crores. There's an elephant in the room. We are trying to wake it up and move. Yes, we have shaken the elephant. We'll move it.
Thank you, sir. That's a wonderful perspective.
Khushi, next question, please.
Yeah, Kampati, you can go next.
Sure, thank you, Koshi. Good afternoon, panel. Wonderful discussion, wonderful insights. So when Vinod sir spoke about organization approach in top down and bottom up, and when Sandeep sir led this discussion with diversity of thoughts, this brings me down to a question where the flat hierarchy is in picture in organizations now. This is completely reshaping the organization structure now. And obviously, when you have diversity, not just in gender, background, but also in thought process, there'll be a lot of challenges in accepting this flat hierarchy and getting the movement done in organizations or industries for say. So how is the industry planning to counter this challenge? How is it planning to get this in order or balance?
Sandeep and Vinod, one of you can take this up.
Okay, probably I will take it up. See, first of all, I think was it Kampati, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Kampati, thanks for the question. See, first of all the organizations are not going for a flat structure. Let's first make it clear. It is not one size doesn't fit all. So please keep that in mind. So and the hierarchies will be there because because business needs it, not because that somebody in corporate wants somebody 10 levels below. No, it is how the business is structured. So please appreciate the business angle first of all. So from that perspective, you will see, but still, if you take a large organization, you will see that even a small division will be equivalent to a company. Okay, it's like that. And so there are basically the context is very important in which context you are talking about. So if the smaller organizations, yes, I think if it is a 100 employee organization versus a 100,000 employee organization, so their context can be a little different. So there will be, so by and large, there will be a hierarchy structure, but there will be also a flat structure in some of the organizations, absolutely possible. However, the trend in the industry is that there is more and more, I would say, less barriers between the roles. There is more openness, there is more transparency, and digital has played again a big role. See, today people don't ask someone if he is suppose a new joinee and say that new joinee is not writing a mail to the 3 levels up and saying that can I get appointment, I need to discuss some idea. No, that's not the way it happens today. Today there are always, most of the organizations have platforms where the idea exchanges happen, where the inputs can be given. So that itself makes the organization flat from that perspective. So you can always raise your point, always raise your idea, and there are mentors in those organizations who actually can filter that idea, whether the idea is really good or not. And if the idea is good, you get karma points. There's a concept of a karma points. So you get a karma point, and if your idea is good, it automatically gets crowdsourced, and it gets the likes, quote unquote, and you actually suddenly become a star. Seeing that a guy who has just joined, he gives a brilliant idea about, for example, in marketing, about in sales, about in operations, about anything. So from your perspective, don't worry about whether the organization is hierarchical or flat. The good news is that there's a platform where you can express yourself, where you can reach, and it is happening in most of the organizations. So the variations can be there. So there is not a problem of that, oh, now this guy has come up, what should I do? I think that phase is also past. And yes, because you will see that if the near immediate boss is not listening to that idea, there are ways to express. I don't think that should put a block on your thinking that, oh, should I express? Oh, this is very frustrating. No, I don't think that's true. So while the more question is that you should ask the question that, do we have a platform to express ourselves? Is there someone listening to it? And I can only tell you that CXOs are listening, forget your bosses. So you will get noticed because everything is digitized. There's nothing offline. Nobody is having physical files to sign. So that is the good news. So that should answer your question, and that should actually make you focus that the world is yours. Rules of the game have changed, and you can play it the way you want to.
Thank you.
Let me just chime in there, Kanapati. It's a very interesting question. So, see, Vinod addressed it. It is not for everybody. Not every organization is flat. But there is this whole concept of entrepreneurship, right? So when you are in a company and you want to be a star and you want to propagate your ideas and thoughts. Not everybody is an entrepreneur. A lot of stars who get generated in an organization are actually come with an entrepreneurial skill set, right? It is not easy for an entrepreneur to survive. It is not easy for an entrepreneur to survive. The only thing is that the entrepreneur has got a little more security and safety net of the organization. But if you really want to become a star, you really need to take those risks in the organization. Not it's not a hunky-dory situation that everything will be process oriented. You have to get people on your side. You have to win over people with your ideas. You have to convince people on your ideas. You have to have stakeholders who will support you, back you, just the way you will set up an organization outside as an entrepreneur. So no journey is easy, right? To the leadership, no journey is easy. You have to find people who will rally behind you. The people who will love your idea, who will grab your idea, who will fund your idea in some way or the other. I mean, funding could be through mentorship, to patronage or whatever. But you need to get people on your side. So it is not going to be a very simple job-wise hierarchical setup or a flat organization giving you something on the platform saying, okay, now you have a great idea, let's make you a CEO of the company. It's not going to happen, right? You will have to fight for it. You will have to convince people. And that's the skill that you will hone over a period of time to really become what you really aspire to. So just a piece of advice, continue to be on the journey of, tenacity to really make it happen. Only then the success comes to you. Okay.
Since we are talking of the leaders of tomorrow, I thought it's a very important that I add my perspective as well. By the age of criteria, I also belongs to a millennial. Just thought it's very important to know that I also come from a hierarchical organizations. But as rightly Vinod and Sandeep said, that it is not the structure that makes a difference. It was in the organizations, have you created an environment for anyone to speak up, give the idea. It's just not the idea. Is that are you have the ability to translate that idea into a reality? That makes a lot of difference in today's context. It's no more where you can approach your one level up, you can reach to the managing director of the company, throw open your idea, tell it the way forward, and show the ability of executing it. I think it is more to do of driving it forward than the structures and systems. Thank you. Can we have the next question, please?
We have Kanchi Goel. Kanchi, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Kushi. So whenever we talk about diversity, there's this age-old question that pops up that, in an attempt to include the diverse groups, be it in the manner of gender or generation or background, how do we ensure that we are not compromising the rights of the other groups? So what, was I audible?
You're loud and clear.
Okay.
Ranganathan, would you like to take this up?
Sure, thank you so very much. Miss Kushi, right? Did I get your name? Miss Kanchi, okay. Miss Kanchi, remember one thing. We all talk of everything being equal, but we have to look at it as everything being equitable. I'm making a difference between being equal and being equitable. Obviously, we all know that every structure that is there, it is in a pyramidal form, immaterial of the flat or the non-flat. But as long as true merit and intrinsic value addition is given due weightage. When I say due weightage in an equitable manner, let's say a person is responsible for 1,000 crore business. That person will have a certain weightage X. A person responsible for 100 crore part of it or otherwise of it would maybe given an equitable, whatever, I'm not saying therefore 100 by 1,000 into, I'm not saying a mathematical equitable. But if this 100 is going to generate a business of 20,000 crores in 5 years from now, this 100 will obviously be at a balloon size far higher than what he would have been pure, or he or she would have been at pure thing. Given these set of circumstances, no group in a corporate, remember one thing, at the end of the day, all of you are management students, at the end of the day, the black and the red, that is the profits and the loss govern. As long as an idea or a group, immaterial of what kind of diversity or otherwise it is, as long as a group is performing consistently, and now we are compelled every quarter we have to come and see the world sees us. Actually, the world sees us. We are in the glass house and the world sees us. We don't have stones inside, unfortunately. But if we are able to do that, I think this is a question, the worry should not be there. I just want to go a little, the question that was asked earlier, I just want to add my point. You don't worry about the structure of an organization. If you think that you are the chief executive officer, you could be 1 year old in the company, but it's not enough to look only at the bouquets that come to you. You should be willing to also take on the brickbats that come, take it forward in your stride, they own up the responsibility and bring your best intrinsic value to the situation. The moment you do that, the group, whatever the question that Ms. Kanchi asked, or the earlier question which talked of a flat organization, these are all in the mind. Every organization has to have a structure, because while a person handling a smaller business would be accountable only for that in terms of strict numbers, the person higher has to see what is the impact overall. Does it impact the brand? Does it impact the name? Suppose, let us say, just for an example, sorry, I'm extending my response. Let's say that this person brings 100 crore business from a country where his segment, he or she is able to do business, but that is impacting the company in the Europes and the Americas in a very big way. The person will be overruled. That's why hierarchy will come in, because they will say that, okay, you are getting 100 crore, but it's impacting my 20,000 crore business. I can't take a chance. Please understand. Sometimes you are not given the reasons. That's what leads to, the flat and the non-flat kind of thing. Hope, Ms. Kanchi, you got a response to your question.
Definitely, sir. Thank you.
Kushi, we'll take up, this would be the last question.
Right, we'll have a last question from Sukrit. Sukrit, you can
Yes.
unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes. So my question is to Ranga sir. So as you know, all companies have their unique diversity promotion initiatives. So what happens when one company acquires the other? How do they align these initiatives and still drive business value? A case in point can be L&T Infotech's takeover of Mindtree.
Culture, the difficulty is not in integrating the business. The difficulty always I won't say difficulty, the challenge for the leadership is always in integrating the people. But as long as the core values are well defined, and even under acquisition, certain core values of the unit being acquired are left to flexibility of that set of people, keeping the overall corporate culture of the parent who's taken over intact, worries don't come. The worries start coming. I'll give an example. Suppose a company like L&T, which is widely held and it's not a family owned, a family tries to take over. Then of course it brings in uncertainty, because many of us who joined as young engineers, I mean in my case of course as a young engineer who had an aspiration that one day we will head a business which is 10,000 crores, one day we can aspire to be the CEO or even the chairman. Those things start getting I would say, sorry to say, but they may get a little dilute and not possible, especially when a family takes one. Those kind of acquisitions, well, it would be improper for me to answer. But if you say corporate, each corporate comes with its own culture, but the value systems by and large, mapping them, trying to bring them to convergence without disturbing the individuality of the unit being acquired. We have succeeded to some extent. I mean, I interact with people in Mindtree, so I know it more, not because my business demands it, but I think we have a lot to learn from them and they have something to learn from us. We have acquired some companies in the past. We have given away, recently you will be aware that we gave away electrical business to Schneider. People are having initial anxieties for sure, but it's not something insurmountable. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir. We will go towards the conclusion.
Yes, sir.
That was definitely.
Thank you.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you
Please
to
go
all the
ahead.
panelists. Thank you to all the panelists for answering the questions. And we got to experience a very today. As Natwar sir mentioned,
Kshitij, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is some problem with your network. Your voice is breaking. You can just switch off your camera and speak. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Thank you to all the panelists for answering the questions so well. Actually, we got to experience a very informative and multifaceted discussion today. The topic was covered in all in a very multi-directional approach. And as Natwar sir mentioned, diversity is not an initiative, it is an ingredient you need in an organization. And this was something that really put things into perspective for us. And Sandeep sir also stressed on the importance of diversity over uniformity, because hiring people from the same type of educational background and age group will lead to uniformity rather than diversity. So he helped us realize that diversity really gives us the tools to come up with an exceptional solution. Ranga sir also highlighted the need for setting change in motion, where policy changes actually help facilitate the breaking of glass ceilings in cultural innovation and social and product aspects as well. Vinod sir also really put things to a very, a very great perspective. Diversity is the only way to do it. So diversity is the norm nowadays. There is no other way, and diversity is just a natural process, and we have to accept it and embrace it as well as possible. So thank you to the panelists. It was a very amazing discussion. Thank you, guys.
Srijit, thank you so much. You just done my job. But it's very important that there's one question which I have for all the panel members to share with all of you. You are going to be the future leaders, or something one from your personal experience you can give your takeaway to them, that something from your personal experience which you like to share, this all this young generation should either follow or adapt to it. From my perspective, I just wanted to say the world is yours. The only thing which I wanted to tell you is that carry all the values all along with you, carry all the people come along on your way, and I'm sure the success is just a step closer to you. That's all from me. Over to Sandeep, followed by Vinod and Ranganathan, if you can share some one takeaway for all of them.
Thanks, Natwar. And I think from my side, I think I would just say that you're entering at the time which is probably the most the most conducive time for the Indian generation to this generation to take the wings in the corporate world, or otherwise even in the entrepreneurship world. So do not carry any baggage. Just take your flight, go with the flow. I think generally we try and make too much of plans around careers and plans around corporates and all that stuff. I think just flow with the process and learn. Your first 5 years are learning, right? Learn the cultures, learn the persons, learn the skills, add to your skills, and from there on, I think the world is yours. So just take it in that stride and enter. The world is yours.
Yeah, I think I will probably start, make it short because already we're almost 8 minutes late. See, I will only tell you that make your personality a lot more agile, lot more resilient, a lot more purpose driven. That's all. Don't be a generalist, be a specialist. There is no value for generalists in the industries anymore. So there are no general managers needed. There are special managers needed. So choose a line, choose an area, choose a career. Everywhere there is opportunity. Don't worry about somebody's in sales, somebody's in delivery, somebody's in business, somebody's in technology. Everywhere there are opportunities. Pick your bet, but be a multifaceted personality. We call it T. Be a T in the organization. Horizontally, you know what, but you are actually a specialist in one. Be that, and I think you will have a lot more opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think the only phrase I use is, yeah, may I come in, please? Yeah, the only phrase that comes to my mind is demonstrate consistently professional integrity under compelling competitive situations to create value at every stage. Thank you.
Thank you,
That was a really
co-speakers. It
wonderful
was
anecdote, sir.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
speakers.
please
It
go
was
ahead.
fantastic learning from you. It's just not for me, and I'm sure everybody today going to have home with some amount of learning. Thank you, IIM, for giving us a platform for all of us to share our thoughts and learn from it. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. We had an discussion, and IIM Sirmaur looks forward to connecting with all of you for our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe. All the very best. God bless you all.
Thank you.